Welcome to episode 69 of At the Coffee Table podcast. I am Jason Clank, and welcome back to anybody that might be joining us here today or joining me today. Um, Today's topic is about listening to the war stories. Now, that comes from the very concept of how this podcast was created. I spent better than 2 decades in a firehouse where we'd sit around the kitchen or the coffee table and we would literally solve the world's problems within a cup of coffee or two. And the war stories that would be shared, because you had every demographic of age group, and it was from the most senior guys, the retired guys and girls, and the active and brand new firefighters that were in the firehouse. So we used to call it sharing the war stories. But there's something to be taken away from listening to experiences from the past, the stories from those that have come down the path before us, those that have had experiences before us. And I wanted to have this solo podcast here today to discuss the importance of listening to those that have had experiences before us, because there's something to a lot of times there could be some hidden gems and hidden nuggets of information within those stories. And I know personally from sitting around that firehouse coffee table that I have taken away many lessons from those that had experiences before us. And if you can proactively discuss the positives with the negatives, the things that went well, the things that didn't go so well, it makes for a great conversation, and it makes for a great learning experience. We're very quick to judge within conversations based on our own perspective and our own stance on certain topics, especially in this current environment, cancel culture and all of that, where, we're not allowed to disagree with each other and have a productive conversation, agree to disagree and walk away learning something from it. If you have the ability to sit down and listen to stories within your industry from people that have already been there, done that, they've learned their lessons, taken their knocks, you can really pick up some much needed information. I always got a kick out of listening to senior guys in the firehouse, retired guys and girls in the firehouse. I always loved conversations with grandparents and the senior citizens out there that have lived decades and decades and lived through some stuff. And their perspective is always usually very unique. And we can really, learn from that history. So listening to war stories. Now, there is a negative part of listening to war stories. Listening to war stories for people that are going to toot their own horn and say, I did this, and puff out your chest and beat your chest. Listen, I did this and I did that. That kind of stuff. And even those that may embellish a little bit on their stories, not a whole lot of education in there. Those folks tend to listen to themselves talk just to hear themselves talk. So it's genuine conversations you have with those that have had certain experiences, that maybe turns on a light bulb for you and maybe teaches you something that you can try later on. Some of the mentors that I had going through the industries that I have been in, especially when I was a young guy in my 20s and I thought I knew it all, and had a couple of mentors, and they weren't all that much older than me, 3, 4, 5 years older than me, that would try to lead me in a certain direction. And because I thought in my 20s I knew it all already, I was very hesitant to take their direction, to listen to their stories, to listen to their direction. Reflecting back, as you get older and you start reflecting back 10 or 15 years, it's like, I probably should have listened to that direction. I probably should have gone down that path, or I probably should have educated myself as they were describing in order to be better at the craft that I was trying to perform. Um, it's one of those things where, hindsight's 2020 or whatever you want to call it, but those are the learning experiences. And mentors, a lot of the time, may not know they're mentoring, even though they are. They may be telling you a story or talking about an experience, but that could be an instance of mentorship, and they don't really realize they're mentoring. You may not be realizing that they're a mentor based on what they're telling you, but they truly are. I've talked to people who have inspired others, motivated others, and I said, "You realize you are mentoring that person or that group of people?" No, 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 no. I don't want to be a mentor. I don't want to be a mentor, but you are. If you're part of that equation where you're giving insight and giving education to someone else or a group of someone else's, you are essentially mentoring them. And I think that's the important takeaway of listening to the war stories is. Um, the concept of mentoring others, the concept of providing value to others without expecting anything in return, the concept of having a conversation and having takeaways, and you don't have to agree with everything. You don't, um, but it is an opportunity to grow as a person and to grow your mindset and to grow your own personal tool set as far as a knowledge base. It's very important that we shape our opinions and shape our it's completely lost where I was going with that. Shape our opinions and shape our own concepts from the experiences that we have. It's the old saying that life happens for us, not to us. So this can be not only professional but personal, on the personal level, where you may have had a situation or something happen that taught you a lesson, and you may have not known it at the time, but if you think about it now, you can see through and see where the lesson was taught. And that's your own personal war story, or your own personal story. And who knows, maybe the experiences that you've had that you can impress on other people that might be going through a similar situation, it may be helpful to them. um, I have talked to friends and family members who have gone through similar situations that I had gone through, and tried to give them my insight on my path down that road of whatever situation it was. And I had an Instagram live the other night with my partner Liz, and we were talking about the whole divorce situation. When you go through a divorce, or you go through a divorce and you have kids and you had a family, and managing that, and then you talk to other people that may be having difficulties within their marriage, that may be staring at a separation or a divorce, and that they may or may not want that kind of insight, because it's very personal. It's a very personal situation. But there's something to be taken from other people that have gone through that, um, in order to kind of manage it better, because it's a very difficult situations. Difficult situations, it's very difficult to find the positives in those situations. But if you can listen to someone else's story and take away from it, it may help you in the long run. I've listened to several personal development gurus that are out there sharing their stories, sharing other people's stories, trying to bring value to others. And I've picked up on quite a bit in the last few years, listening to the experiences of others and what brought them to where they are today. So this is a quick and dirty podcast episode. I was thinking about it this week, about war stories and the war stories I used to listen to, and it's funny, the amount of fire department, firefighting, fire scene stories that I have in my head that can like drop out in a minute, and it's those experiences that kind of shaped the path that I went on, and some good, some not so good. Uh, those. And one of the things I was thinking about was that, we used to, in the firehouse, we'd go to a call. It could be in the middle of the night. We get a call 1 o'clock in the morning. And you go out to the call and you come back. And then we spend 2 hours talking about that call and the different calls and calls that were similar, incidents that were similar, and just sharing all of these stories. And it was part of that camaraderie building that goes on, relationship building that goes on in those situations in that industry. But I think we all can relate to those similar things. You get together with family and you start talking about your lives and different stories and things that have happened. And, you may have, grandparents and older aunts and uncles that talk about their lives as, young adults and things they did back when they were teenagers, and the different environments they lived in, which, there's always something to take away from it. But it's always really, it's that dynamic and those conversations that really mean the most. There's a lot of meaning to those conversations. But again, this, kind of a quick and easy podcast episode today to stress the importance of listening to those stories, listening to those war stories of others, those ones of the people that came before us. You can, sometimes you got to search, sometimes you don't have to search so much to find the value and the nuggets of information that are involved and included in those stories. I'd like to hear what your story is, or any kind of input you have. Please drop a comment, share this with anybody that you think might get some value, but drop a comment. I'd like to hear what kind of stories you have, or stories you've learned from in your past or in your present. So with that, I hope everybody takes care of yourselves, take care of each other. Have a great day.